Coming up on Network Africa, at least 21 people killed by drone attack in northern Mali. Malawi begins screening for Mpox at all points of entry into the country. Plus, UN aid teams report huge challenge in protecting people in Sudan from a second deadly cholera outbreak. Hello and welcome to the program this week. I'm Layo Olarinde. Thank you so much for joining us. We begin here in West Africa. There's been an attack on a village in northern Mali near the Algerian border. According to the Tuareg-led groups, on Sunday, 21 civilians were killed, including 11 children. Now, this attack on the village of Tinzawatine marks the largest number of civilians killed by drones since the breakdown of a peace agreement between the country's ruling military junta and the armed pro-independence groups in northern Mali last year. The strikes come a few weeks after the Malian army and mercenaries from the Russia-based Wagner group were defeated by Tuareg rebels and fighters from the JIWM group, an al-Qaeda-linked group. Well, the Tuareg majority groups say they continue their fight for Azawad independence, which is the strategic framework for the defense of the people of Azawad in northern Mali. To political stories, Mozambique has begun political campaigns for the general elections set for October the 9th. The ruling party since independence in 1975, Frelimo, will be facing the main opposition party, Renamo, which originated from a former anti-communist rebellion. However, there is an independent candidate in the mix, Venancio Mondlane. He said, according to analysts, he might create a surprise in October's election. The current president, Filipe Nyusi, who has been in power since 2015, cannot run again, so his ruling Frelimo party has nominated Daniel Chapo. The main opposition party, Renamo, on the other hand, will be represented by Usufu Momade. The third candidate, who could also change the status quo in the race, is set to embody the hope for regime change and could also create a surprise. On election day, Mozambicans will also elect their parliamentarians and provincial authority representatives, as well as the president of the country. Health matters now. Malawi has started screening for Mpox at all ports of entry in a bid to prevent the spread of the virus. The move comes just days after the first two suspected cases were registered in the country, and they're currently waiting for the lab results. The two people include a 31-year-old male who is being treated in hospital and a 17-year-old boy who is receiving care at home. The Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, is the epicenter of a more deadly strain of the virus that emerged last year and has subsequently spread to over 10 other African countries. Africa's top public health agency last week said some countries on the continent could start vaccinating against Mpox within days. Well, here in Nigeria, Nigerians are being encouraged to do more research on the current Mpox disease, and the health authorities urged to thoroughly test vaccines before distributing them for use at various health centers. The call is coming from members of civil society groups at a press conference addressing the WHO declaration of the disease as a public health emergency. Speakers at the conference, mainly doctors and health practitioners, decried the imposition of vaccines and public health interventions, citing the nation's COVID response that complied with WHO standards, which proved non-effective in preventing the disease and in curing it. They also faulted testing and non-autopsy of Mpox cases, saying that the Mpox vaccine is only targeted at certain classes of individuals.
A cursory reading of WHO's websites concerning Mpox show that the statistics that have been used to declare this public health emergency of international concern are unreliable. The reliance on PCR testing for diagnosis of this disease, when PCR is not a diagnostic test, is a concern, especially given the role that PCR testing played in the proliferation of diseases and positive tests rather than actual disease cases during COVID-19. There is an absolute absence of autopsy reports for deaths that are being claimed are due to Mpox. When people have disease and die, we are able to confirm categorically that that disease is what killed the patient through autopsy reports. We are being told that people are dying from Mpox and no autopsies are being carried out. Health financing that is focused on vaccine procurement for a self-limiting disease is bad medicine. We are spending money on the wrong things. Mass vaccination for general population is obviously the plan, because I am sure that Africa and definitely Nigeria does not have 10 million gays, transgenders, non-binary men who are having sex with men that they have planned these doses for. These doses are for the general public, and yet the vaccine is not indicated for the general population.
We have opportunities to look inwards to solve our health issues. Massive opportunities, 200 plus million people. If we look inwards, we'll find our solutions and stop relying on these important things that many of us truly are in distrust of, whether it's vaccines or medications. We have our solutions here locally for viral problems. The other aspect of this is we as a people are getting weaker and weaker in terms of our immune system. Recently, I was on a radio program and they shared some statistics that malaria is getting worse since the 1970s, 80s, 90s, and now it's very serious in terms of the occurrence, incidence of malaria. And my response was because over the years, we've done things that have undermined our immune system. So whether it's malaria, it's COVID, or it's Mpox, we must start looking inward. How do we improve our body metabolism, our body defense systems, to withstand all that is going to be sent our way from.
Joining me now is one of the doctors at the press conference earlier today, Dr. Williams Edit. Thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you very much for having me.
So let me see if I understand this. You are not discrediting, the existence of the Mpox. You're just saying it's not a public health emergency?
Correct. It's not a public health emergency at this time. And when you talk about public health emergencies, there are certain points that you look out for. Classically, morbidity, mortality, and in very common terms means how ill does it make people and how many people does it kill. Now, if I told you that you had XYZ whatever and you didn't experience significant disruption from your health and it didn't cause anyone around you or you to die, it wouldn't be a major concern, and that's where Mpox falls right into. I'm going to go right to the meat of the matter. In Nigeria today, we've had in this year 2024 a total number of 40 confirmed cases of Mpox. Now, balance that with the 200 million plus citizenship that we do have. That is a very infinitesimal number. And out of those 40 confirmed cases, we have 0 deaths in this year. Last year, we had about 96 confirmed cases and 2 deaths. So that's less than a 0.1% mortality rate. So, and this is also the strain we have in Nigeria is clade 2. And the clade 2 is known to be self-limiting, which means that if you had it today and you did nothing about it, just the same way your flu comes and goes, for the most part, this would pass also. So that being said, it lets you know that clearly this is not a public health emergency of international concern for us.
Here in Africa.
Here in Nigeria specifically, and by extension Africa. Congo, that's the DRC, that's the epicenter. At their highest fatality, had a mortality rate of about 3.5%. Total confirmed cases of about 14,000 and deaths of about 500 plus. So these figures let you know that this is not and mind you, these deaths are in immunocompromised patients. So people who are healthy, regular, normal, not aged, not ill already, not underaged, these guys do fine and blow over. Now in the DRC, there's a new strain, which is the clade 1B, which is a bit 1B specifically, which is a bit more concerning because it's now found to be sexually transmitted.
Yeah, and that's my next question. You know, we heard something about certain individuals being susceptible to it because of their sexual orientation. But you know, WHO has debunked this. But are you saying it's not easily contracted?
Okay, so I don't know about debunked because there is data that shows that there's a higher prevalence among gay people, as is very similar to several things that are sexually transmitted. I mean, when HIV came out, it was initially found out in the gay population. So things that are sexually transmitted seem to have an affinity for gay people. That's just the data. Now, about its easy contractability, it is actually easily contracted. It's not difficult to transmit, really. As we know, body fluids, respiratory droplets, these things are means of transmission. And now for the 1B, sexually transmitted, so that adds to another way that it's transmitted. And that may be the most important concern about Mpox. And this can be well curtailed by good surveillance, case tracking, and contact tracing, which we have already done in Nigeria in previous times. This is not a new thing to Nigeria. We had the first Mpox case in 1971 in Nigeria. We had the most recent outbreak in 2017, starting in Bayelsa, and it did quite a run in the country. So it didn't stay in one place, but we defeated it by regular public health measures, surveillance, health education, healthcare practitioners, safety measures, and all of that. And we brought the numbers all the way down to what it is today without the drastic measure of having a vaccine being rolled out. A vaccine, by the way, which would be under an emergency listing, which is not something that we want to talk about. We've had a previous experience with this kind of things where vaccines were rolled out shabbily and the outcomes were not good, and worse for us in Africa where we do not have data, unlike the US where you have the VAERS, which you can actually track how bad we were hit. In Nigeria, we literally have almost no data concerning it, so we're in the dark concerning these things, but we know that those that have data have a very bad outcome. So that lets us know that this didn't do well with us, and it wouldn't do well with us if we do the same things again. So pushing, I think, is a bit too aggressive for vaccine, because the vaccination means you're giving to everybody, to a large population, something that you cannot vouch 100% will not have a bad outcome on some people, if not most people. And a lot of these vaccines are rolled out with indemnities, so you can't even go back to the people who gave it to you and say, hey, what you gave to us was bad. It had this effect on us and we want this kind of payments. We saw it in COVID. Nothing's been done about any of those things that happened. And all the losses that we made financially, economically, health-wise, all for nothing. I keep saying, at the initial time when COVID was on, you would see a lot of numbers in the rise and the prevalence and all of that. And what NCDC was giving us those green, yellow, and those updates every day. And my question is this: what happened? What did we do? And how did COVID leave Nigeria? Because we never found a cure. How did it leave? It could have always left by very simple things. And the vaccines were not the things that made it leave, because till today, it never stopped transmission. Those that were vaccinated over and again came down with COVID. I'm a physician. I was a frontline physician at the time. I treated more COVID than most in Lagos, Nigeria. And I'll tell you that those that were triple vaccinated came down with COVID. So it certainly didn't stop transmission. So how did we get it out of the country? And how are we back to living normally and people are not dropping on the streets? It's simple. The simple things count. Load up on your vitamins, stay healthy, keep your immune system up, and you'll largely be good to go. And the same thing is here for monkeypox. Only the immunocompromised. I mean, look at it. The figures, the numbers don't lie. 40 confirmed cases, 0 deaths. So why are we does that sound like an emergency to you?
Oh, well, you have said, you've made the points which we understand, and I was going to ask you about, what we can do to both beef up our immunity, but, load up on your vitamins.
Yeah, load up on your vitamins.
And all of that.
Lots of fluids, just like it's viruses.
We'll have to end it there.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
Okay, not a problem. That's fine.
Yes, we have to end it there because of time. But thank you so much, Dr. Williams, editor. Thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Welcome back to the program. We continue with the war in Sudan. UN aid teams are reporting a huge challenge in protecting the people from a second deadly cholera outbreak. And this is coming after 16 months of heavy fighting combined with flooding and ongoing access obstacles in the country. The UN Refugee Agency, the World Health Organization, and the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs all underscore the various problems each agency is facing in order to provide food and healthcare services to Sudanese people. According to the representatives, the needs are huge in Sudan.
We have seen quite large numbers of cholera cases in Kassala. Kassala is an important area for us, hosts a large number of refugees, but also internally displaced. So far, we have 119 cholera cases in 3 refugee sites in Kassala, and 5 refugees have passed away, regretfully, of the disease. You can imagine refugee camps, displaced camps are sites where people live on top of each other. They are hugely overcrowded with the movements of Sudanese and also refugees from Khartoum, from Wal Medani, from the Darfurs to the east, to Gedar of Kassala. All these areas have become hugely overcrowded. The water systems that were in place do not have the capacity to respond. That really needs massive investments.
On the ground, we are still facing some obstacles and some challenges. Either because there is a miscommunication between the decision makers and those who are on the field, or because there are other issues. Of course, this is in addition to other challenges due to floods and the quality of the roads. The vaccination campaign already started, and we used the 51,000 doses that were already in the country. So the vaccination in Kassala State concluded yesterday. So we were aiming to reach the 97% of the target population. Now, the good news, as I mentioned, is that we got the approval of getting additional 455,000 doses of cholera vaccine. So this is the good news in the middle of this horrible crisis.
Tunisian President Kais Saied has announced a major cabinet overhaul, appointing new ministers, 19 of them, including those responsible for defense, foreign affairs, and the economy. And all of this is coming ahead of the presidential election slated for October the 6th. Earlier this month, President Saied dismissed his Prime Minister Ahmed Hachani, replacing him with Kamel Madouri, who previously held the position of Social Affairs Minister. The ministers overseeing finance, justice, and the interior have retained their roles. Now, this cabinet reshuffle comes amid a financial crisis and growing public discontent due to ongoing water and electricity disruptions in the country, and also shortages of essential goods and medicines. To South Africa now, a major player in the country's political landscape for more than a decade, the Economic Freedom Fighters Party has been shaken to the core. And this is following the defection of its deputy leader, Floyd Shivambu, to former President Jacob Zuma's fledgling party, Umkhonto weSizwe MK Party. Mr. Shivambu was seen as the EFF's ideological guru, while the party leader, Julius Malema, assumed the mantle of Commander-in-Chief, or Screamer-in-Chief, as his critics dubbed him, with his fiery rhetoric demanding the nationalization of white-owned land and mines, and also the decolonization of education. Well, the duo seemed to be a winning team, with the EFF gaining the support of South Africa's young population that were frustrated with the slow pace of political and economic reforms since the end of the apartheid system in 1994. Let's speak now to our correspondent in South Africa. Innocent Samosa joins us now on the program. Hello, Innocent. Good to see you. I want to begin with how massive this story is in South Africa.
Well, a very good afternoon to you, Layo, and our viewers around the world. Indeed, a big political move. In fact, it has been an interesting time for anybody who's following politics in South Africa. A big shock to many commentators and, of course, cadres of the African, or should I say, the economic freedom fighters, when the deputy president, this is somebody who started this political party, he's a co-founder of the party 10 years ago and has been a deputy president since then. He has decided to leave. In fact, this has pained Julius Malema. In fact, when he was briefing the media about these outcomes, he in fact said that the pain that he felt when Floyd Shivambu said he's not renewing his membership again, he said that it's like a pain. It reminded him of the pain of losing his grandmother. That just goes to show that it was not just about comradeship, but it was more than that. It was brotherhood. So he said that he had to go to Floyd Shivambu's house to basically ask him why is he not renewing his membership. In fact, he said he looked at Floyd Shivambu in the eyes and said, "What did I do to you?" And Floyd said, "You did nothing. This is a political move." And he mentioned that they had their last supper, but he said there's no bad blood. This is a political move, Layo.
Well, indeed, I was going to ask you, if we knew about his reason for leaving, but I mean, it is politics as you know it. But, the EFF presents itself as this, radical political group, and, the members seem so loyal to their ideologies. How will this, impact the party, or would there be any impact at all?
Without a doubt, Layo, this will impact the economic freedom fighters. This is somebody who is politically sharp like a razor when it comes to issues that has to do with parliament and issues that has to do with the economy of the country. And he's played a huge role in the EFF when they were putting together their 6 cardinal pillars that speaks to land expropriation without compensation, the likes of the nationalization of a means of production in the country. So he's somebody who was key in that. So Julius is losing somebody who was very much instrumental in the economic freedom fighters. But we heard him over the weekend when he was addressing his ground forces. He said that he feels betrayed by his former deputy president, and he went as far as to say that anything that was associated with Floyd Shivambu shall be removed. And that is quite telling, because that could very well be that those who were under Floyd Shivambu in the economic freedom fighters might follow him to Umkhonto we Sizwe party. So this is a very challenging time for the economic freedom fighters, and it does seem as though Julius Malema, he's very much emotional about this issue. He's not as cordial as when the news was announced that they are not going to throw names at each other. They will continue as brothers. They'll engage each other politically. But it does seem as though right now it's not the story, because also Floyd Shivambu over the weekend, Umkhonto we Sizwe had a media briefing, and this is where we had Floyd Shivambu saying that this is not about pleasing anyone. It's politics, and he did not in any case betrayed the struggle. So he's still, gonna fight for the people, for the emancipation of South Africans on the ground. So it is a very turning point for South African politics. Interesting times ahead of us, Layo.
And I can imagine the MK party welcoming him to their midst. Thank you so much, Innocent Samosa, our correspondent in South Africa.
Thank you, colleague.
Well, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has emphasized that the Just Energy Transition JET framework will be a crucial evidence-based tool guiding the country's shift from a carbon-intensive economy to a cleaner, greener future. The Presidential Climate Committee, PCC, presented this framework to him last week. President Ramaphosa reiterated South Africa's commitment to playing its part in the global fight against climate change. He made these remarks at the inaugural Just Energy Transition Municipal Conference in Johannesburg.
As signatory to the Paris Agreement, South Africa is committed to contributing its own fair share to the global climate change effort. We must pursue this commitment in a way that delivers just outcomes for those affected by the energy transitions, and those are our people. We must pursue it in a way that contributes to inclusive economic growth, to energy security, as Minister Ramaphosa was saying, and ultimately to ensure that as we transit, our people are not left behind, and that we create employment.
And that's where we end the program for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.